Hi there and welcome back. And in this lesson, we're going to be talking about minimalism and happiness. Now, if you look up the word minimalism in the dictionary, you'll learn that it can refer to a trend in sculpture and painting in the 1950s, which made use of simple, massive forms. In music, it refers to a type of composition characterized by the repetition of short phrases that change gradually and that ultimately create a kind of a hypnotic effect. And in this lesson, however, what I want to do is I want to use the word minimalism to mean doing more with less. Now, this is really interesting. Studies of people who have come into large sums of money quickly and unexpectedly, such as maybe winning the lottery, show that they may experience brief periods of happiness right after that windfall. However, within a very short space of time, they're as happy, or if you like, as unhappy as they were before they got all that money. That's amazing, isn't it? Well, does that mean then that money doesn't buy happiness? Well, it may well do, and I'm sure that some of you are now thinking to yourselves, oh yeah, right, you say that, but just try living without money and then you'll see. Well, that much certainly is true. A person does need to have the basics covered, and living without money is certainly not very pleasant. However, once a person's basic needs are met, study after study has shown that more money doesn't necessarily lead to more happiness. As a matter of fact, sometimes too many possessions lead to less happiness, not more. And what's even more surprising is that other studies have shown that people tend to feel happier when they spend money on purchases for other people than they do when they buy things for themselves. And people who spend their money on purchasing experiences, such as maybe holidays and adventures, these people tend to be much happier than people who feel they have to buy the latest fashionable gadget. I'll let you know that I don't fit into that sample, by the way. Personally, few things make me happier than geeking out over a new gadget. Anyway, for the most part, we often feel that if we have that next new shiny object, that we'll feel complete as human beings, that we'll feel whole. However, the brief burst of excitement that accompanies the purchase of a new car, a new smartphone, or an expensive new outfit is generally pretty short-lived. It can even be followed by a sense of remorse if we've spent more than we feel we should have. Even worse, if after that expensive purchase we happen to notice that somebody else has something newer, better, or shinier, we can experience envy and the urge to go out and buy yet another thing in an endless cycle, trying to sort of compete with people, keeping up with the Joneses. Now, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, less is more, right? Well, I don't always agree with that. Personally, I'm all for abundance. However, that doesn't mean buying loads of things necessarily. Let me explain. I think it comes down to motivation. If your motivation, for example, is to purchase something for authentic purpose, then I believe it will contribute to long-term happiness. However, if it's motivated by less authentic purpose, such as keeping up with the Joneses that we spoke about before, then it's less likely to do that. Does that make sense? For example, learning new things, maybe taking up a language, learning an instrument, would be an authentic desire, well worthy of investment. Because you see, it keeps on giving and it's totally dependent on self and no one else. Okay, so that, I hope, gives you a slightly different take on minimalism and happiness. So let's move on now to the next lesson and I will see you there.